Right now, somewhere in a gear bag near a pickleball court, there's a paddle with a stamp on it that says USA Pickleball Approved. There's a real chance that exact paddle isn't the paddle that actually earned that approval. Not a knockoff, not a fake. The real brand, the real model, just not built the way the one that passed the test was built. That's not a rumor. It's happened more than once to some of the biggest names in the sport, and almost nobody buying a paddle knows to check for it. So let's check. Here's the assumption almost every buyer makes. A stamp means the story is over. It passed a test, it's legal, done. But that stamp is tested on a sample, not on your exact paddle. A brand submits a version. It gets tested for things like surface texture and rebound. And if it passes, the whole model line gets listed as approved. What ships to stores afterward is supposed to match that sample exactly. Supposed to. In May 2024, JOOLA's Generation 3 line, one of the most popular paddles ever released, got pulled from USA Pickleball's approved list. Here's how it started. JOOLA told USA Pickleball that back in November 2023, they had submitted paddle samples under something called a certification by similarity process. Basically a shortcut where a brand can get a new paddle approved by signing an attestation that it is structurally identical to a paddle that already passed testing, without a full new round of testing. JOOLA said the samples they had submitted under that process were the wrong ones. USA Pickleball delisted the entire Generation 3 line. What happened next became one of the biggest fights in the sport. JOOLA sued USA Pickleball, arguing the delisting broke the rules, since manufacturers are supposed to get roughly 6 months' notice before an approved paddle gets pulled. USA Pickleball countersued. And here's the part that matters to you as a buyer. USA Pickleball alleges JOOLA submitted one version of the paddle for testing, then sold a different one to the public, with, by USA Pickleball's own claim, 2 to 3 times more foam packed around the edges than what was actually tested. JOOLA denies that. Separately, players who had already bought the paddle filed their own suit, saying they paid full price for a paddle marketed as certified when the certification was in question. That one settled in 2025. JOOLA paid affected owners without admitting fault. The fight between JOOLA and USA Pickleball itself is still working through court as of this video. And here's the twist. That exact paddle technology, the foam perimeter design at the center of the whole dispute, turned out to be good enough that other brands started building their own version of it. This year, JOOLA filed a patent lawsuit against several competitors over it. And at least one has already agreed to stop making similar paddles and pay JOOLA royalties instead. The design that caused this entire mess is now something JOOLA is fighting to own exclusively. JOOLA isn't the only name on this list, and it isn't a one-time problem either. CRBN had multiple paddle lines fail an official surface roughness test back in 2022. The issue was grit, texture on the paddle face, rough enough to grab the ball and generate extra spin past the legal limit. The paddles were pulled, CRBN called it an isolated batch issue, and they got reinstated. Then, in 2023, a different CRBN model failed a version of the same test again, this time at a professional event. And it's not just older paddles that get caught after the fact. Earlier this year, a paddle called the Ronbus Ripple had its release stalled before it ever reached most players. Beta versions had an innovative, wave-like surface texture, and questions came up about whether that texture crossed the line on the same surface roughness rule that got CRBN in trouble. The launch got put on hold while USA Pickleball sorted it out. So this isn't only about brands cutting corners after selling something. Sometimes a paddle gets flagged before it even fully ships. And here's what makes this genuinely confusing instead of just annoying. There are 2 different organizations certifying paddles now, not one. USA Pickleball covers amateur and recreational play, with over 2,500 paddles on its approved list. A newer body called upa-a certifies gear for the Pro Tour with a much stricter standard. Only around 180 models make that list. A paddle can be completely legal for your Tuesday night league and still be banned from professional competition. On top of that, the USA Pickleball list doesn't update once a year. It updates weekly. Now, if you only play in the park with friends and never touch a sanctioned tournament, you might be thinking none of this affects you. And technically, nobody's stopping you from using a delisted paddle in a casual game. But a couple of things are worth knowing anyway. Some local clubs and leagues enforce the approved list even for casual play, so it's worth checking before you show up somewhere new. And more than that, a brand getting caught selling something different from what it's certified is a pretty direct signal about how much you can trust its marketing in general, tournament player or not. So here's the 2-minute version of actually checking. Go to USA Pickleball's official equipment page and search your paddle's exact model, not just the brand. If you play any kind of sanctioned tournament or league, check upa-a's list separately too, since passing one doesn't guarantee the other. And because the list updates weekly, it's worth rechecking every few months, especially with anything you bought in its first year on the market, which is when most of these issues actually surface. This is basically why this channel exists. Not reviews based on vibes, not "this one feels nice in my hand." What's actually true about the gear you're about to spend real money on, backed by the actual rulings and filings, not marketing copy. If that's useful, subscribe, because next up, which paddles are genuinely worth your money, and which ones are riding on a name?